When your computer just doesn't work anymore, that's like, a little bit scary. So I'm hoping when I go back, it's gonna be like magic and I'll just turn it on and it'll be fine. We'll see how that works. Anyway, tonight we're going to talk about time. And there's a quote from, and some of you may have heard it, from William Penn. So we're going back 300 years, okay? But he said, time is what we want the most, but what we use the worst. Okay. And I think a lot of us can really relate to that, like, oh yeah, we're always looking for more time. And then there's always times when you say to yourself, where did that time go? Or what was I doing? Or, how did this, work? So we're going to try to see if we can make ourselves a little bit more effective in using time. And I'm going to reiterate what Z said. If you think about something, if you have a question, jump in and ask it. If something worked for you, especially if you hear somebody say, how do I do X, Y, and Z? And you have a solution, like you've had something that worked for you, let us know, because sometimes there's like more than one solution to a problem, or, different people prefer to do things in different ways. So we're always eager to hear from other people and how they've worked on their different problems. Time. You can't manage time. Time just is. What you have to manage is yourself. All right. So that's, like an unfortunate thing, we we prefer not to change ourselves if we can, but that's what we're really looking at here. You have to change your own behavior with regard to time. It's really, I think it's more difficult to organize your time in a way than it is to organize your stuff. Because when you're organizing stuff, like you clean out the closet or whatever, it'll stay that way probably for a little time. But when you're organizing time, or you're trying to manage your own time, then, like it's every day is a new day and, a new challenge to do, and we'll talk a lot about, the things that, how you can help yourself dealing with time. There are really maybe it's four. Four things that are almost like essential. I think the first thing is like a to-do list. And we've all started to-do lists, and, we're pretty, I speak for myself too, when I say I can be pretty haphazard about it. Sometimes you're good for a week, using a to-do list, keeping things, checking them up and everything else. And then it kind of gets buried under a lot of other paper and nothing happens. But if you can keep a to-do list, and I might send you a sample that I have, that I run off, which is just basically, aligned paper. I made it on the word processor. This is assuming I can get onto my computer again ever. And I have like one side is just blank lines for, whatever pops into your head, whether it's something like, empty the waste baskets, or something, like paint the living room. Some tasks can be done in a few minutes, and some tasks can be done, like you have to really plan for them. But if you think about something, it's not a bad idea to put it on the list, because that's really a help that maybe will actually get done, or you'll try to figure out when it's going to get done and schedule it, make time for it. And some of those little things fall by the wayside, like, oh, why didn't I do that? Like I should have done that, because then I can't do this because I didn't do that other little thing that would have taken me 5 minutes. To keep a running list of things you've got to do is, a pretty good idea. With the to-do list, you can do it. There are apps for to-do lists. So you can do it on your phone. All right. I prefer paper and pencil, just because, not because it's, morally better or anything, but just because it's it's easier for me to jot down than to pull out the phone and find the right app and put it in or something like that. I like to have it, like if you have a piece of paper out, where the piece of paper is, it's easy to just, run over and, take a pencil, put something on there. I also like scratching things off. It's very satisfying. And if you look at a page and you've got stuff scratched off, you do feel, like you've accomplished something. But like that's a real personal preference. And if you really want to use an app and you don't like one app, there's probably another one out there that you could try. I don't have any particular, there's one called Todoist, I think. There's I think there's a task list on the iPhone, but you just have to figure out what works for you. And a lot of apps are free, so you can try them without any kind of, commitment to them. And there's a lot of advantages to having a to-do list. One of the biggest ones is it gets it off your mind. All right. So, like you don't have to keep ruminating and thinking and like, oh, I can't forget this. I can't forget I have to do that. If you have it on a piece of paper, then it's much more likely that it'll actually get done. And of course, it's also the scratching off part is good too. All right, and it allows you to concentrate better if you're not continually trying to think about, oh, I can't forget to do this, I can't forget to do that. If it's on the paper, that's a reminder. Okay, once you've got your to-do list, then you have to do this stuff. So there's a couple of things here, and one is a calendar. All right, and it's again, some people do better with a calendar, a digital calendar. Some people do better writing on a calendar on the wall or on their desk or whatever. Here, I'm more of an app person. I put it on my phone because I have my phone when I'm at the hair salon, or I'm at the doctor's office and I'm making another appointment. Or if I'm out with friends for lunch and we say, oh, when are we going to meet again for lunch? I have my phone, so I can put it in there. And I can also see, what else is coming up at the same time. So, again, it's a personal preference. I have friends when I go out to lunch and we're trying to set our next lunch date. More than a couple of my friends pull out their little pocket calendars and they write their appointments in there. So it's, like I said, it's really a matter of personal preference, what you do. One thing though about the calendar is if you live with other people, it's really good to have a family calendar. Now, I live with my husband, just the two of us right now. And, but we sit down every Sunday and we go through our calendars for the coming week. So I will write down any appointments that he has, and he will write down any appointments that I have, because then, we know who's going to be around, or, if we can't plan something because, he's not available or whatever. It's helpful for me to know where he needs to be when, and it's helpful for him to know where I'm going to be, so that he's not making plans that are going to conflict with something that we want to do. If you have a family, it's like crucial. There are so many school things that come up. There are, I always say, if you're a one-car family and you have two people being two sides of town at the same time, you really need to know that so that you can carpool, or you can make other arrangements, or you can do something. For the whole family to know who's doing what when. Some families will take the wall calendar, and you have to need a big one with big boxes if you've got kids in school, would be to each person having a different color. All right. I don't know how many people, have lives that are that complicated. And I didn't do it when my kids were young because I wasn't really planning that well then, I guess. But, we had 4 sons. We still have 4 sons, but they're not here anymore. So that was, that would have been helpful. Like, one kid would be blue and one kid would be green, and one kid, it's easy to see who has to be where when. Another thing to do if you've got school age kids is to take the calendar that comes at the beginning of the school year. Now, it's not going to have everything because during the school year, other things come up, but it does help, if you get the team schedule or you get the school calendar or you get, something else from the Boy Scouts or whatever, to put those things on the calendar. So again, because conflicts arise and you have to be able to, figure out how you're going to deal with these conflicts. And it makes it easy to see. And also you can plan your week a little bit better if you know who's got to do what, when. So that's the family calendar. Then let's see. Okay, the schedule. Once you've got everything on the calendar, you're taking your calendar and your to-do list, and then you're trying to make up a schedule. So you take your schedule. I mean, I kind of resisted this. I got to tell you, but when I've done it, it's really, well, it's been pretty helpful. And you can have like a day planner that would work very well, or you can have a, you can print out your own schedule from, from the computer, where you're putting in, you're looking at the calendar. Okay, so that's like, okay, there's, a concert that you're going to, or there's a sale at such and such a store, or, and you're putting those things on the calendar. And then you can go to your to-do list and see if there's anything that you really should block in there for that day. When are you going to do this, or when are you going to do that? What can wait and what really needs to be done today? And put some of those things on there. Now, you don't have to put something like, you don't have to put like a shower and all those things you do in the morning, but you might want to block off a particular time for a morning routine, an evening routine, and if you're going someplace, allow travel time. Don't think you can squish. Yeah, you might only be at the doctor for 45 minutes, but you got to get there, you got to get back. So make sure that you allow enough time for that kind of thing on your schedule. And sometimes it really helps to say, oh, well, this is why I'm not going to get much done around the house cleaning today, because I've got all these appointments, and they'll show up. So that gives you a sense too of like, oh, I really can't get this much done, or I have a little block of time here, and you can pick something from your list that's quick to do, because you've got like 15 minutes here or half an hour or something, and this will fit nicely into that, and it'll be I can scratch it off, it'll be done. And then my beloved timer, for those of you who know me, you know that I'm a very firm believer in the timer, because the timer does a lot of things. It can remind you when something is coming up, like, you only have 10 minutes before this, and you put it on. It also helps to get, me started. Sometimes if I think, oh, I'm only going to spend 20 minutes on this or something, or 10 minutes or whatever, it helps to get you going. Okay, I got 10 minutes. All right, let me get going. Let me get started. And I'm not going to futz around here. And sometimes it can keep you going, because you're thinking, okay, I've allotted this time for this task. That's what I'm doing now. The time is running. This is what I'm doing for that, and it also helps you sometimes to stop. Like if you have to leave the house, or you have to do something else, or you have to call somebody or whatever, and you have to do that at a certain time, sometimes setting the timer while you're working is good, because if you get carried away, you won't do the other thing that you already committed to, because you're really losing track of time. So I just think that the timer is a great thing. Pomodoros. I mean, I know we've talked about them before here, but for those of you who are not familiar, I had heard about Pomodoros, and a Pomodoro is like is a block of time, like 25 minutes to work on a task, and then a 5-minute break. Now, this is really good for something it would take a long time. So, sometimes if somebody's like studying for an exam, which is originally how this came up, I think, studying, but it could be anything that you're working on, which is kind of tedious, or, you want to do it, it's something that you can do for a certain amount of time, and then take a break, and then come back to and get it, eventually get it finished. So the Pomodoro is 25 minutes with a 5-minute break. And I thought that it's called the Pomodoro because there was some guy, Pomodoro, who developed this technique, right? Wrong. A Pomodoro is Italian for tomato, okay? And Francesco Cirillo, an Italian, developed this, and he got this idea of using this like a longish period to work and a short break and another period of work. And what he used to time it was his kitchen timer, which was, for those of you who are old enough, I mean, I remember back in the 50s when there was everywhere you went, there were these tomato, they looked like a tomato, and you would twist it to the time and it would tick, 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 and then, ding. Okay. I've seen others since that are different. Somebody gave me one that was like a champagne cooler with a champagne bottle in it. So Francesco had a timer that looked like a tomato, and in Italian, tomatoes, pomodoro. So he called his time intervals pomodoros because he was using this tomato timer to time them. Anyway, I love that story. And now he's made a fortune. He's got, I think, a book. He's got, this was back in the 80s. And I think he's been living off this idea ever since. Anyway, okay. The other thing you can use a timer for, and I don't know how often you would need this kind of a thing, but sometimes, we think something will take, it'll take forever. Or we think, I can get that done quickly. Sometimes we really have a distorted idea of what works. So, like how much time something will take. So it helps sometimes, if it's something you're going to be doing frequently, it might help you to actually time how long the task takes. So where you can fit it in your schedule, or how to tackle it. You really don't, if it always takes you about 20, 25 minutes, you really can't plan on doing this before you go out the door at, in 10 minutes, if you need to be out in 10 minutes. So it's, it's not something you'd do as frequently as you would to time, to set a time for you to do an activity. One of the things that I found, I had an overflowing, well, I still kind of overflowing, an overflowing inbox. I'm very good about opening the mail, and then I put it, I recycle the papers that need to be recycled. I shred anything that needs to be shredded. I file stuff, and I have this box where I'm going to do these things, and I, an inbox, and I put the stuff in the inbox. And, but of course, sometimes that's as far as it got, so I decided that I needed to, set a time. And I said, okay, 30 minutes a day, I'm going to tackle this box until it's empty. And I wasn't doing it. I did it occasionally, but I wasn't doing it every day. And I said, you know what? It's because it seems overwhelming, 30 minutes. And I made it 20 minutes. And you know what? I did it. I would do it at 20 minutes when I wouldn't do it at 30 minutes. So you have to think about, how you feel about some of these things, because if you really are resistant to, and different people might be resistant to different things, try to figure out what it is about that's giving you grief. And maybe you'd be able to, tackle that, and come up with an alternate solution. But for me, it was the time. It was just, I didn't want to work on this thing for, 30 minutes a day, because it was like, mind numbing. But making 20 minutes was good. Okay. What else do I have on here? Okay. Also think about how you're using time. Maybe that sounds silly, but we can be effective and we can be efficient. And of course, it's best to be effective and efficient. And what do I mean by effective? Are you doing the things that are most important? Okay. Everything on your to-do list is something that you want to do. Sometimes the more important things are, more difficult to handle, not always. But we might just pick off the lower hanging fruit, something that'll, we can, because we're kind of, like I was saying before about scratching something off and how good that feels, we take the easiest, simplest things to do first. But we really have to be thinking about what's the most important thing on that to-do list that you made, and what, pick one. There might be several important things. You can only do one at a time. Usually, pick one and work on that. So that would be being effective. If you're an effective use of your time is working on the things of most value to you. And then there's being efficient, and sometimes we get carried away being efficient, how quickly I'm doing this, or how well I'm doing this. But if it's an unimportant task, that's not really necessarily the best use of your time. So, but we do want to be efficient. So when you've decided on something, that's the wisest thing for you to do at the moment, then gather your materials or whatever it is you need to do your tasks, so you're not running around like a crazy person trying to get something done. You're not wasting your time on this task, and you want to do it as efficiently as possible. So think about the steps, and think about what makes sense to get to be efficient as well as effective. So and then you're getting the biggest bang for your buck, if you can manage that. I often talk here about habits and routines, and there's a lot of value in that. One of the things in terms of time management, it's valuable because if you've developed habits and you've kind of chained them into routines, usually you're getting things done more quickly because you're not thinking about them. Sounds terrible not to think about what you're doing, but and we all have, I think almost all of you have a morning routine. So what you're doing is you are, you get up in the morning, you do the same things in the same order every day. I've talked here before about my morning routine is basically get up, shower, get dressed, go down and put my coffee on, because that's crucial, coffee. And then, but I've also brought the laundry down from upstairs. So I run down to after the coffee's on, of course, not until the coffee's on, go down and put the laundry in. So I've got a load of wash started. And if it's garbage day or recycling day, that goes out at that time. I pick up the newspaper from outside on the front. And then I come back. I have my coffee, I do my crosswords. But, and when I'm finished with the crosswords in the morning or whatever, my laundry's done, I put it in the dryer. So basically, I've gotten kind of a lot done, but I'm not thinking about it. It's the same thing every day. So I'm not really wasting time in that way. And some of you probably have similar routines when it comes even like to fixing dinner or something. So, at a certain time, like, you started dinner, the water's on for the pasta or whatever. And then you can go back and, then you can go set the table. Like, that's a good time, even when everything's like kind of started. And we all have our own routines, and your routines might not make sense to somebody else. My routines probably don't make sense to other people, but, but because you're not thinking, because it just one thing comes after the other and you get it done, that makes that frees up time for you to do other things. It's the time, it's not going to be maybe a huge amount of time that you're adding to your day, but in some ways it is. It's giving you more time to do other things, which, would be maybe of more value, more interest to you. Okay, and anybody have any questions or suggestions or whatever? No? Okay.
So far, so good. Love it.
Okay, good. I'm glad. Um, uh, Learning to say no. Sometimes we feel, right now my family is like, I seem to be spending a lot of time on family kinds of things for different reasons. And I have to, this is why I'm so crazy lately. Sometimes demands on our time, or oftentimes demands on our time, come from other people. So, like, so we have to learn sometimes to say no, but we want to say no graciously, like, oh, thank you so much for that you think that I'm, that I would, for the honor of like being like bake sale chair, but I really can't do it this year. As much as I would love to, I'm afraid I just can't, you don't necessarily have to give like a lot of excuses, but you have to, because it's so hard. But if you've kind of developed, and I don't know that I've done this yet, I really can do this, but if you develop or think about ways to say no, like, I'm so flattered, but I really can't at this point in time, or, and you don't have to say what's going on in your life necessarily. But, even just something like, I have so many other obligations right now, but, check back with me in maybe a couple of years. So anyway, but that's one thing that, just think about that. I mean, it's not easy to say no. And sometimes you really feel depending on who the person is, what the obligation is, or whatever, you make time for that particular thing. But if it's something that you're not really committed to, that you're not really involved in, and feel free, say no. Just say no nicely. Okay, and so that's what we call being gracious in your refusal. Okay. Procrastination. Now, I almost didn't really cover this, when I was writing my notes for this. I really hadn't thought too much about procrastination. Not that I haven't given it a lot of thought in the past, but that really does impact your time, and what you can do, and what you can get done and all. Because you're not checking those things off the list if you're procrastinating on them. But you're wasting time. Like, when we're procrastinating, usually we're picking some other low important task to do, something that maybe doesn't really have to be done at all, but it gives us an excuse not to do, this other thing. And there's reasons for this. Sometimes it's a matter of perfectionism. Okay, so I can't get started on this because it's I'm not going to be good enough. I'm not going to be perfect enough. It's not going to be done the way it really should be done. And sometimes you just have to kind of like do something on it. Get something done on it. And it doesn't always have to be, I don't know if you've ever heard the expression, the perfect is the enemy of the good, because sometimes nothing gets done because it's never going to be good enough. So, you really have to think about how good does this have to be? What does it matter? Does it matter if I use paper cups instead of, crystal? In a lot of situations, no. People are, if you have a party, people are there to gather and to have a good time. And if the glasses aren't going to be a problem, just use glasses. But if it's, but if that's going to be, an issue, use the paper cups. That's one thing. And sometimes we procrastinate because we try to do things at the wrong time. Most of us have an optimal time of the day. So you don't want to be doing like your low-level tasks at your optimal time of the day. You want to be doing the tasks that take, more involvement, where you want to be spot on. You really want to be at your best. There's not always like big ticket items like that on our schedules, but sometimes there are. And it helps to schedule them at the time that you feel the most with it. Okay. And you could save the ironing for, some other time, because you don't need it exactly to be, at your sparkly best to do, to do something like that. Sometimes it's the environment that we're in. So you're not in a place where you really feel you can concentrate on something. It's too noisy, or it's too quiet, or it's too warm, or so think about where you feel more comfortable. If you're not feeling comfortable, it's going to be hard to get some things done. So you might want to consider, that, just because a lot of times it's mostly a matter of getting started with things too. So, think about what would help you. Would a little bit of music in the background help you? What would work for you to make you, if the room was like brighter or darker, or, whatever, if you need more quiet, maybe you go the other end of the house, or the upstairs instead of downstairs, or, and bring the stuff you have to do with you, and maybe you'll be more effective then. Sometimes it's a matter of break. Sometimes a task seems overwhelming. And if that's the case, is there a way you could break it down? A lot of big jobs are just amalgams of shorter or smaller jobs. So can you maybe break that down and make your tasks, and maybe not all of it at one day, but do this part this day, this part another day. Think about what you can do to make it more manageable for you. One of the things, and I don't know if this, some people say that this is helpful in terms of procrastination. I'm not sure whether this is where it really fits in or not, but a to-do list. And we've talked about this before, I know, at least once time, but it's been a while. We talk about a to-do list, a to-do list, a to-do list, and everybody knows what a to-do list is. Some of us are better at it than others. But Gretchen Rubin, who's an author, talks about something called the to-do list. And sometimes the motivation, a to-do list is the things you got done. So you're writing, if you've accomplished something and you're proud of yourself, ta-da, you put it on your to-do list. And sometimes that might motivate you to do this thing, because then I could put it on my to-do list. For some of us, it's just enough to scratch it off the to-do list. Or you can have two lists, a to-do list and a to-do list. But it's just something. The thing is, it's, I don't know if you're the expression like gamify things help in accomplishing stuff. You may and every task you want to take becomes a piece of cake, like a spoonful of sugar, like fun. Way to do that sometimes helps with kids too. Every kid gets a big jar. If you can, a jar, a bowl, or whatever, you commit to doing whatever comes up on that piece of paper. Other people have said things like, and then you roll the dice. You make a list. Six, you number the 6 ones. You got to do number 5. You got a 5, and it kind of takes, it gets be, but it makes it a little bit more like a game, and it may help in just getting you, your blanket gear, as they say. The other thing, and this gets a little more complicated. This is, I think, tends to be when people are trying. It might be more for habits, but it may work for getting tasks done too. Having an accountability partner, so a good friend, a sister, or a spouse or whatever, and where each of you commits to doing something that you've got to do, and then you're going to report in to the other person, at the end of the day or the next day, or at the end of the week, if it was something that was like a longer term thing, so that you know that you're going to have to be responsible to somebody. You're going to have to own up to getting it done or not getting it done, or I did like 3/4 of it. So so that's sometimes it's helpful in moving you along and getting things done, if you know that you're going to have to answer to somebody and kind of explain why you didn't do it and whatever. Sometimes, okay, there was an earthquake, okay, you're off the hook. But if it wasn't an earthquake or a hurricane, maybe not. So that can be helpful. Okay, I'm going to pause here and take a breath. Anybody have any comments to make? I didn't actually check the chat. I don't know what's in there. Are things in the chat. Let's see if there's anything that comes up that's okay. Oh, the topic is okay. Somebody said okay. Okay, so somebody has a to-do list apparently, and that was helpful to them. That's great. And accountability partners, or the same person has accountability partners, are also a good strategy for them. So so I'm glad to hear that some people are using some of these. Anybody else have things that have worked for them to share with us? Things I may not have thought of.
I tried one of your ideas recently. I had decided that it would be a good thing for me to meditate every day. And the
Okay.
book I read, which was an excellent book, said, start out by, sitting quietly for an hour.
Hey.
Well, there was no way I was going to do that. So I said, I'll do 20 minutes. I could not sit still for 20 minutes because I had lists in my head. So I said, okay, I could sit still for 10 minutes. So I just started with 10 minutes. And then every couple of days I'd add a minute. So I went from 10 minutes to 11, and then I went from 11 to 12. And so I've made my way up to 15 minutes.
Okay.
It's not bad. It's really good. And I'm okay. 15 minutes is good. I don't even need to go more than that. But that's how I just wanted to get started, because I noticed in the past that just doing it every day, it just made my whole day go better.
Yeah.
So I really wanted to do it, but an hour was out of my reach right now. And even 20 minutes was too much.
Right. And the thing is that for you, for almost any of us, like, who has an extra hour in their day?
No.
I mean, you might want to work up to it, because if like maybe if you're finding the rest of your day going so much more smoothly, then that may make the time for you. But for most of us, like, an hour, really, like
that was a little heavy. I couldn't do it. But,
but
anyway, it really did work to bring it down to something that I thought was doable and probably easy. And so I just did what was easiest and figured I'd build on that.
And I have to ask you, were you using a timer to let you know when the time was up?
I did. And in the beginning, I used to peak. I kind of open my eyes and I say, how many minutes?
Left?
I mean, 10 minutes is not a lot, but it felt like a lot when I started, because I wasn't used to it. It was a great way to get into it.
Well, because we're not used to sitting still.
Yes.
So I can see where that would be difficult, and you probably approached it the best way.
And the other thing I did is I told myself, if I'm in a day where 10 minutes feels like too much, it's okay to just try it for 5.
Right.
I just gave myself permission and said, I'd rather do 5 minutes than nothing.
Yeah.
No,
And, you
no.
know, and I know we've talked about this here too, and it could really more in terms of habits and things. And this is what you're trying to develop is a habit of meditation. Is that don't break the chain. And even if you're cutting down on the time, so like this is kind of a thing. It's not his original idea, but Jerry Seinfeld, I think, is kind of famous for this don't break the chain business, because he swore to write a joke a day. You know, like that he'd have to come up with a joke every day, which I can't imagine. That must be so difficult. But you know,
Worse than meditation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he would have and then I guess he'd have a treasure trove he could draw on for a shtick, you know. But anyway, it's on a calendar. Like you mark off an X on the calendar, and then it becomes very motivating not to break the chain. You know, that you've done it every day. So you know, so that's the kind of thing where if you've knocked the time down to where it's manageable and you can do it, then you can have this, you know, like not break your chain. You know, you're doing it every day. So thanks for sharing. That was great. I like that. And something I've said works. I mean,
It did. It worked.
not that you did it because I said it, but it's proof that that the technique works. Okay, let me see what else I've got on this list here. Multitasking. Okay, there is almost like no such thing. All right. If you're trying to multitask and do two things at the same time, if you're multitasking, you're really just shifting your attention from one thing to another, which is sometimes not a good use of your time. But there are a lot of mindless tasks. Like I never iron. I iron every day, and I never iron without watching the television, like, you know, because otherwise I would just shoot myself. So
I do the same.
Yeah. So that's I pretty much limit my television watching to when I'm doing when I'm ironing. You know, so the ironing gets done. I've, you know, watched a show that I like, so it made it a little more pleasurable or something. So there are some things that are a little bit mindless. You might be able to, you know, listen to the radio while you're cooking, unless you have like this cordon bleu recipe that you're trying out, you know. But you know, so there are things that you can do like that, but there's not really a lot, and you can't really do anything that requires much concentration. Like we can't do two tasks that require much concentration. Basically, you're probably going to sabotage your efforts. You know, I don't know that anything's going to come out so wonderfully well if you're shifting attention back and forth. So that's just one thing. I think it's a myth to think, oh, I'm doing, you know, these 12 things at one time. No, it really doesn't work that way. You know, if you can concentrate on something and get it done, then you're much more likely to do it, you know, probably quicker and better. So, you know, maybe not as quick as doing two things at one time, but there aren't that many things that you can really actually do two things at the same time. So, let's see what else I have. I had another page. I thought, okay. One of the things in terms of your time is being well rested. Like if you're trying to make good use of your time, and of course, sometimes we don't have a choice. Sometimes, like, you know, we're tossing and turning, and you know, we didn't have a good night's sleep. But trying to maximize, well, basically your health in general, but sleep in particular, because when we're tired, I mean, I don't think it's news to anybody that when you're tired, you're not really working very efficiently. You're not, you know, functioning on all four cylinders there. So you know, you might want to think about that. Like if you're not getting things done, or if you're, you know, what are your health habits like, especially, you know, when it comes in regard to sleep. So I have to say, I don't know that I have a heck of a lot more, and but I'm certainly willing to talk about a lot of, oh, what was that? Hang on a second. Okay, just about, planning in general, we have to really think about, planning our days. Like that's, basically all this talk about the schedules and the to-do lists and the calendars and all. It's really kind of so that we're planning. If you don't have some kind of a guideline, and I'm not saying it has to be like you have to plan every nanosecond of your day out, but if you want to get things done, it's you really have to have some kind of a plan. So, Marianne, did you have something to say?
I did. I hope you're all doing great and you're dry. Of course, I'm off and running around. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can. Yes.
Oh, okay, excellent. It was very interesting. I went, this comes out of a couple of conversations back that you've had, Pat, with instead of buying more bins, discard what you have in the bins. So you're not buying more. So having done that, I've either returned brand new bins because I no longer need them because I got rid of what I was going to use them for, or I've donated out the bins that I have and the materials in the bins as well. But my biggest challenge was figuring out how to responsibly discard electronics. So it's actually interesting. I know Best Buy has the recycling. So I went in tonight with the intent of doing that. And one of the store workers was, had stated, "Oh, wow, that's really interesting. I haven't seen one of those in a long time." It was a portable DVD recorder, which worked great. So I said to him, I don't have to give it to recycle. I can give it to you if you want it and you think you will use it. And he's like, "Oh yeah, I would definitely use that." And I'm like, "Really? Here you go." And then I gave one of the other electronic devices to a young neighborhood kid. So that worked out nicely. It was nice to know it was going to go to people who could use it. They're in fine shape and they do work. And I felt worlds better giving them away than I did, just recycling them.
Yeah.
So I'm getting there in terms of shifting things out.
Yes. Well, my accomplishment yesterday, since we're back to declutter. We always come back to decluttering. I had two big bins of Halloween costumes. Some were kids, some were adults costumes. And I had gone through the two bins quite a while ago, actually, and knocked it down to one bin. I mean, we're talking huge, these were huge. I knocked it down to one bin. And then the other stuff I bagged up to go to Goodwill. Okay. Halloween, or not Halloween costumes. I figured, somebody might want these. And the bag sat around. I gave the empty box to John for his train stuff to put under his train table in the basement. Half of my laundry was now gone for the trains. But anyway, so finally today, I said, it's October. If I don't bring these costumes in October, the market for them is going to go way down, So I brought my Halloween costume, my costumes to Goodwill, my big bag of costumes today.
Wow, nice.
Very good.
Finally got it done. But, I did drive around with them in the car for a while, before this, but I finally got them over there. Not today, yesterday I didn't. So
Very good.
Anyway, anybody else have any problems that we could help them solve, or any suggestions for other people, or any accomplishments you want to tell us about, like meditation and costumes and electronics and stuff?
Could I say,
what was it?
this is Linda. I don't know how to raise my hand, but I wanted to mention on another time, somebody said it's difficult for them to get anything done when they have like a later start and work, like maybe you don't have to be at work until 11 or something. And there is that time before that is sometimes not well planned. But I just I had one of those. I had to be somewhere at 10:30 and I had 3 things to accomplish. And I remember looking up when each of those places opened. It was the post office, it was AutoZone, and the vitamin shop.
Okay.
To get done. And so I, got their opening hours.
Uh-huh.
And it just worked out just so nicely that I was at and I think when you go early someplace, it's, they're not crowded. So I did go to the post office first, and then AutoZone fit in. They open really early, but they're closer to Vitamin Shop. So Vitamin Shop didn't open until 9:30. So I just remember having that schedule and feeling accomplished because I got that done before I had to be wherever. I don't remember where it was I had to be, but there you go. Thanks.
Yeah. Well, see, the thing is, like, one of the things I talked about this, I had to remember I should write it down for myself, send out the to-do list to people. One of the things about the to-do list is that I have one box for errands. Like I have one for shopping, one for errands, and one for calls. So if I think of like some telephone calls I have to make, I'll put them on the errands. It helps because going on an errand, it's really kind of like on the way, or it's not that far away from where I have to go with this other errand. So you kind of grouping things a little bit more efficient. You're not going out every day to run an errand necessarily, but if if you're okay, I'm going over to Eastchester, on Central Avenue or something, whatever it is, and you have like a couple of places you could hit, in one trip, it can really cut down on time. So the same thing with the stores. If you have, if I put down that, if I have some stuff I want to pick up, I'll put the store name and the items I'm thinking about, and then so when you go there, you're going maybe for something new that you thought of, but you look at your list, you say, oh yeah, I need those 2 things too. I have to pick up this, I'm going to CVS, I need to get these vitamins, and I need to get, toothpaste and whatever, whatever is on that list. It helps to cut down on the number of times you've got to go out. So, and of course, if you're going on an errand, you probably should check this shopping list, and if you're going shopping, you should check the errand list, but that goes without saying. So anyway, anybody else have some hints for us?
No, it's not a hint. I just wanted to say I've appreciated all this about making lists. I tend to make lists for special things like I'm going away, or company, and make lists for that. And a lot of other lists I keep in my head, but I think I would do better if I wrote them down. Mm-hmm. And I think I'm going to start to do that, because you make these plans in your head and it's very easy.
Yeah, well, you think you're not going to forget, but you can forget. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, one of the things I came across today when I was looking for, other hints on time and stuff, but it's, I have more folders, with all this organization stuff. But one of the things is checklists. And I was wondering if I should do a program on checklists. I mean, I've mentioned these things before, but, at different times in different meetings and all, but I have, like, for instance, a checklist for when I travel, which I have on the computer. And I can maybe modify it. I never throw anything out. I move it down to the bottom and don't print it out. But I don't throw them out, because maybe on the next time I am going to need, the boots or something. Right. So I write down. So I've got one for traveling. I've got one Thanksgiving. I have checklists of things to do from 3 weeks out, 2 weeks out, 1 week out. Because Thanksgiving is like preparing for like battle, and even for the day of. Like we usually eat about the same time, so this goes in the oven, then this comes out, and this other thing goes in, and, so the time, just a list that's by time. And, that has worked out for me. I'm trying to think of some of the other lists, but, I have, like lists you can pull out, and modify and save. And then, the next time you're going to do something like that, it's because, we go on vacation, but, like it's much easier to pack, if you could just pull out a packing list and check them off as you put your stuff together. Yeah, checklists I think are great. If there's something that you do, like maybe seasonally or whatever, and it's a good reminder. For those of us, I'm not really one of them, but for those people who are like, spring cleaners or whatever, you might want to write down, these are the things you want to cover, like with your spring cleaning list. I think checklists of any kind are really very helpful. So, lists in general. So like, if you're, you're thinking about something that is going to require several steps, or you have to, collect this stuff and bring it with you when you go. A list is invaluable. So, anyone else have a suggestion for us? No? Okay. I'm kind of done. I don't know, Z, if we can cut out early or not.
Well, let's talk and see if anybody has any questions or comments that they want to share, and then we can do brainstorming for next time, right?
Okay, that would be great.
What we do. So, yeah.
Okay. All right. So this is your opportunity. Ask us anything. You've got a whole bunch of helpful people here. Yes. Hi. Okay. And I don't know. I'm doing things like on my own computer, and this is somebody else's computer.
That's Say. She's a new staff member with us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, Say. Welcome. Welcome to our group.
I guess I'm still new. Hi. I wanted to say earlier something I started doing as well. So I make my own, I have ADHD, and I've been doing cognitive behavioral therapy for about a year. And I'm also very visual. I'm a visual thinker. So I literally just did this yesterday. I made my own weekly schedule calendar
Okay.
like in Photoshop for maybe it took me maybe 2 hours to make something. And so I have my to-do list and day by day what I want to do. I have each day of the week, right? But I also have things like my favorite memory and my favorite pictures from that week. This week's win, which is really important. And when I do write down what I'm doing during the day, I'm gonna zoom in on Saturday. I write that I'm hanging out with my friends. So I not only schedule the things that I need to do for work and mostly for school, but I also schedule I'm going to take this time to play this video game or to do my hair or whatever, or see my friends. So it doesn't feel like my whole life is just work, but I also have things to look forward to.
Well, that is a good idea. And I don't know that I mentioned it tonight. That's one thing I had thought of when I was getting this stuff together, is that, sometimes if we're making a whole list of things that we have to do, whatever, it's nice to put one or two pleasurable things on there. Things that, like read a book, or
I usually write down books I want to read.
Listen to music, or that favorite British murder mystery you want to see on television or something. So I think that's great, and it's good that you can recognize for yourself that you are a visual person. So this is going to make an impact for you, because it may even help you remember, because you almost visualize where these things were on your schedule.
Yes. I started off, my therapist gave me a really bland template. I don't use it anymore, but something like this. This is just a monthly calendar thing, something very plain like that. And it was just hour by hour for every day of the week. And it was just not working for me, because first I was okay, I'm planning everything by the hour, but what if I need to use the bathroom? And the other thing was it was not visually striking enough for me. Everything was black and white, and it just wasn't clicking in my head, and it was just too stressful. So I just said, I said F it, and I just made my own thing from scratch of what I want to do. And this took months of therapy to come to this conclusion. Like it did not come like that.
Well, no, yeah. And the thing is, that's what you have to kind of be aware of, I think, is what works for you. You know, and like what works for one person is not going to work for another person.
No.
You know, whether you're visual, whether you're auditory, or whether, what time of day works better for you. You know, some people say, oh yeah, I got to do everything like first thing in the morning, get it done, well, not necessarily, because some people aren't really, like me, I need the coffee in the morning. I need to sit and do my crosswords, and then I can function, you know.
Like my brain doesn't start going until like 12 p.m. So I'm active now, like from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. is when I'm like really. So my sleep schedule, my rest needs help.
Yeah.
But that's another discussion.
Yeah.
It was a lot of trial and error. Like one thing that I often see a lot of like neurotypical people say is like, oh, set reminders on your phone. But I hate that. Like I hate having notifications on my phone. I hate having to check my phone. I hate being on my phone. Like it's just like
unlike the rest of America.
I know it's so not Gen Z of me. Because
you go any place and everybody's on their phones. Nobody's talking to each other.
I don't like being on my phone. Because I'm also I'm just realizing that I'm like becoming a mature adult. This is a crazy moment for me. But I realized throughout college,
the best of us.
I realized throughout college that like being on my phone a lot makes my ADHD way worse. Like it's just not a responsible thing for me to do. And so when I have a lot of notifications, like those red bubbles on the apps, like it drives me insane. Like I need to clear all of that immediately. I hate every time, like I get like 7,000 emails a day and it drives me nuts. I'm like, you people need to be like, you people need to calm. It's not just the library. Like I get a lot of emails from school and like personal emails and stuff. So it's not just, but
the thing is, to the extent that you can, and usually it's more like, businesses or, organizations or whatever, unsubscribe, so that they don't send it to you in the first place, because the email can be completely overwhelming. I know. I think most of us suffer from that to some extent or the other.
It's visually overwhelming for me. I hate looking at numbers. It's like the red bubble and then the number in it. No, like it doesn't work. So, and that took time for me to learn. It took time for me to learn, like, I'm sure you guys hear about TikTok a lot from people. It's rapidly becoming the most popular social media app. And I used to use it like over the pandemic and stuff, but I deleted it in like May because it's so bad for I would wake up and spend 5 hours on that app. And I was just like, whoa, like that's crazy. Like Twitter, I'll spend an hour, which is like, fine. Okay. I can do Twitter. TikTok, 5 hours, that's crazy. I deleted the app off of all of my stuff. And my life has literally only gone up since. Like, I'm not even kidding. And I sound like you kids and your phones these days, blah, blah, blah. But TikTok in particular is really insidious with their algorithm, and like your attention is their money, basically. So
well, that's almost for any app. And I think that
it's really exasperated on TikTok is what I'm trying to say. Because there are only so many tweets you can read, like there's only YouTube videos are much longer videos, so it's not like you're constantly cycling through things like you are on TikTok. So I think like just be mindful of things that take advantage of your weaknesses as a person is really good, is my advice, I guess. Like, to be very observant of like what stops you from. I don't have any social media apps on my phone. I only use social media on my computer. Because I can't, like, no Instagram.
But it's not always with you.
No Instagram, no Facebook, no Twitter. Definitely no Twitter on my phone. That is self-destruction. I don't do that. I only use Twitter on my computer because I have to sit here and be here to be on Twitter, which is not all day, every day. So
Well, the thing is, that's in terms of our our discussion tonight about time, I mean, that's important. You know, it's important to realize how we are spending our time, you know, and, you know, where does it need adjustment? And you've, you know, been handling that. So that's great. That's very good. We all need to do that, you know, every once in a while, take a look at, you know, what are we spending time on? And really, do we have to, you know, spend time on this or that, the other thing? For everybody, it's different. Of course, what, you know, where their time sucks are.
Yeah, probably like,
yeah, so congratulations to you on that.
yeah. That's
Anybody else have
probably
any
pretty
comments to make?
Pat,
What
someone private chatted me about the eat the frog technique.
Oh yeah, I've talked about that before.
Yeah, the Mark Twain, like you remember, like you said about doing the worst thing possible at the beginning,
Right,
and then
yeah.
that way that you get it out of the way.
You're like, every day you got to eat a frog. Okay, so the idea is, you say looks a little funny. Yeah, what that means is like there's one thing that's like, ugh, I don't want to do that. So rather than trying to push it off, maybe later, you do it the first thing in the morning. You eat the frog, and do this horrible thing, whatever, you know, whatever you really don't want to do, and get it out of the way. So the rest of your day is like a breeze. You know, if you've done the worst, if you've done the most difficult thing, for whatever reason, it's difficult. Either it's strenuous physically, or it's going to be really hard to do. Like, you know, you have to tell your mother you're not coming to Thanksgiving or something, or, you know, if there's, you know, whatever it is, get it out of the way and clear your plate. You know, you can look at your whole to-do list and say, this one, I gotta do this and get it done and put it behind you. So yeah, that's what we call eating a frog. For those of you, for the uninitiated, that's what eating a frog is.
I love that metaphor. It's perfect.
Yeah.
And Pat, I know in the past you've spoken about the Eisenhower matrix, and people who have a tough time making decisions and critical thinkers, the Eisenhower matrix is a really great method for them.
Yeah, that's for those who don't know, the Eisenhower method is 4 boxes. Okay, so and I don't remember exactly how it was drawn, but let's just put it like so: important but not urgent, important but urgent, not important and not urgent, important, I mean, I'm trying to think of it, not important and not and urgent. Like, so there are different, so you've got 4 possibilities here. So there's no question, if you put the things in the box, okay, some things are urgent. This thing has to be mailed today, or this has to be, you know, but you've also classified each item by whether it's important or not. So whether it's important, so you could look at your to-do list and you could say for each item, is it important? Yes, no. Is it urgent? Yes, no. And you put it in the right box. Okay. And then, so what happens is so there's no question what's the best use of your time. Those things are urgent and important. Okay. If it's urgent, but it's not important, it goes like lower down the list. So, you know, it really, and if it's not urgent and it's not important, it probably doesn't matter if it gets done at all ever. So, you know, you might want to think of, you know, tasks in those terms, in terms of how to budget your time, looking at what's, you know, what's important, first of all, and urgent, second of all. So, and things that are important but not urgent also need to be done before, like a lot of other things. So thank you for reminding me about that. I had kind of forgotten about I forget what they Eisenhower boxes or Eisenhower whatever.
Matrix, yeah.
Matrix, the Eisenhower matrix, that's it.
Yeah. And then somebody else wrote in the private chat, if you asked if you'd heard about Parkinson's law, that the amount of time you have is going to, like, the things will fill the amount of time that you have. And they said that they're a procrastinator and they work well under pressure, and they went to go see a coach, and that is the technique that was recommended to them. So can you tell us a little bit like about how it works?
Oh, what, Parkinson's law?
Yeah.
Well, it's basically just that activities expand to fill the time allotted. So sometimes it's like not allowing the time. I think it's really just kind of the idea that if you say, oh, I have 5 hours to do this, it'll take you 5 hours. If you had the same amount of, if you said the same activity and you got 2 hours to do it, you might get done in 2 hours. So it's really just a matter of, I guess, putting a little time pressure on yourself in a way is supposed to be helpful. I guess I'm not so crazy about the idea of putting a lot of pressure on yourself, but you don't want, like something, you don't want like cleaning out a closet to, well, it depends on the closet, I suppose, but to take you all day. It's something that you could allow, an hour on this or whatever, and you might be, and you have a decent job. And that's another thing too, is that sometimes what we do is, there's also the 80-20 rule, which is that 20% or 80% of the benefit comes from the first 20% of the effort of the time. So if you have, and it doesn't matter what the job is, we could probably discuss a lot of different things, but let's say it's 100%, there's 100% of a job, okay? You can have, if you spent the first 20% of the time that the whole job would take, will give you 80% of the benefit. So that's very motivating when you come to think of like, oh, I really don't have too much time. I really can't do this whole job. No, you can't. Do 20% of it and you'll have 80% of the benefit from it. If you spend 20% of the time that it would take to do the whole thing, you'll get 80% of the benefit. So think about it. Like if you were going to, let's say, clean out a closet, okay? And it would probably take, maybe it would take you a couple of hours to really go through everything. And well, if you spend 20% of that time, of those 2 hours, you will get 80% of the benefit of cleaning the whole cleaning the closet out, because you will have gotten rid of like, 3 coats and, and those old boots with the holes in them or whatever. And, all of a sudden the closet looks a lot more reasonable, and you didn't spend it, you didn't go through everything. You didn't go through everything, but you were able to go through like, like 80% of it in only a fraction of the time. So that's the 80-20 rule. But the benefit of any job comes in the first 20% of the time that you invest in it. So I probably should look up more for that, but there's more involved in that, I think. But it really does kind of hold true that for a lot of the things that you do, you don't always have to completely finish things for them to really pay off for you. Sometimes people say, oh, it's going to just take so long to get this. They're just the way I want it, right? Yeah, but think of how much better we do if you put any time in at all. So anyway, anybody else have any time relevant things, or even clutter relevant things, since we always come back to clutter? Yes, yeah. Say.
First of all, this is my frog Bean, and I will not be eating him. He's very cute.
He's cute. He's too cute to eat.
I need to ease into the day. That's not gonna happen. And second, I looked up the Eisenhower matrix, and I'm confused as to how something could be urgent but not important. I don't really understand that.
Okay, let's say a friend of yours wants something that you have, and she needs it by tonight. But it's not the most important thing in the world. I mean, and it's certainly not important in your life. It's important in her life. And of course, you want to keep her as a friend. Maybe it becomes a little bit more urgent. But there are just things that are, they're maybe time sensitive, but they're really not at all important. So even if you miss the deadline, the earth's not going to swallow you up. I'm trying to think of a particular thing. Anybody have any idea, a good example of that? Something that would be.
I often struggle with prioritizing what tasks to do first when I have a lot of especially like I have a lot of assignments, so I
Uh-huh.
should like what assignment to get out of the way first.
Mhm.
Um,
Well, so like you're talking about like a school assignment.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So let's say you have a school assignment that's supposed to be due, tomorrow, but it's not a very important assignment, and it's also a professor who's very lackadaisical anyway. So it's kind of urgent because you do have this deadline, but it's really not it's not as important as as this other paper that must be done, and it's worth 25 or 50% of your grade, and it's due tomorrow also. Which one of those two things are you going to do? You're going to do the one that's important and urgent, not the one that's just urgent. So that's the kind of thing that we're talking about. And I grant it, usually we don't usually call things urgent unless they are important, but sometimes we have deadlines because they're other people's deadlines. And it really is not going to affect us much. Not that you want to leave friends hanging or whatever, but if you miss it, so what? So you're not going to get the free soda because like let's say you've got a coupon. If you get there by 4 o'clock today, you'll get your free soda. Well, really, you don't need that. Okay, it's not important, but it is urgent because if you don't go by 4 o'clock, you're not going to get it. And I agree with you. There aren't that many tasks that are urgent but not important.
I understand better now. Thank you for explaining.
Okay. I'm glad. But it is a way, it is a way of thinking about tasks to put them in those boxes and then take care of the ones that are, important and urgent first. And then decide where you're going to go from there.
Yeah, thank you.
So, anyone else have any comments? What I'm interested in is success stories. If anybody, accomplished something, I liked hearing those in the beginning of the, from, Anne Marie made her comment about her meditation. Susan, any successes lately? And decluttering, time management.
All these good ideas when I listen to you and all the good ideas that other people, but I must say I don't follow through very well.
Oh, well, that's like most of us,
Right. But I get, renewed energy every time we meet. So maybe this month I'll do better. I'm going to make more lists.
More lists, yeah. Yeah. Well, I really think that it's benefited me a lot just having the things I can print out of usually I adjust them for whatever the current circumstances are, but or pack for vacation, because the last few years we've rented vacation houses, and that's a whole other thing, like from packing a bag to take on an airplane. You need your clothes, but you also need, like paper towels and dish soap. Some of those things that some basic foods, because you're not going to be eating out all the time. So the thing is, like, so those lists, have helped me, and they don't take up much room if they're on the computer. They're easy to adapt to. So I found them, I probably should use them more than I do, but mostly for holiday planning and for, traveling. They've been, quite useful. So anyway, Gina, do you have something to say?
I was going to say, for instance, today I had a dentist appointment at 2 o'clock, and I knew I had to leave by at least 1:30, and I don't give myself things to do before I have to get out. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have children to take care of except a cat. So I don't, unless I just make a few phone calls in the morning, and if I receive any phone calls, fine. I received one. I wasn't planning on it. It was before coffee. I was like, oh God. I just got a landline, and this girlfriend said, well, I'm calling you on your landline because you said you have trouble with your Verizon wireless phone. I said, yes, in the building. Yeah. So I'm not gonna start something like laundry because I don't have a machine in my, inside my apartment. If I was still living in my mother's house in Yonkers, which, by the way, is gonna close, we're closing on next week. So, so stressful and anxiety up to here. But, so if you can do a small task before you have to go out, fine.
Mhm.
But, like take a shower, wash your hair, take care of the cats, the kids, make some phone calls. Okay, but I don't give yourself too much stuff to do before you have to go out to a hair appointment or something that you have to get to. I don't know if that's any help. I mean, but if you have your own house and you have your own washing machine, that's different. You could leave the clothes in there.
Yeah, but you probably shouldn't leave it running either. But
Yeah.
then before we go, and I think we only have till 9. So we got 4 minutes. Anybody have suggestions for and it doesn't matter if something that we've done before, but any for next month. I'm open to any ideas. I mean, the one idea I had today crossed my mind about the checklist, but I want to do what people want to hear, what people want to do.
Somebody had written in the private chat, Pat, me asking me if I thought it was a good idea, like project management. It doesn't have to be like a work project or a school project, but any task, like any big task. Like if you could give us a template of how to approach something, and then if we come into snags or something, like how to redivert. Sort of like a template for that. So I guess just like checklists, right? Like the value of checklists could be like part of that project management, like tips and tricks for major project management. Okay, all right. That's good. You know what I think I might do? I do have the list for the group. Maybe what I'll do is I'll send out an email asking for ideas from everybody to see what kinds of things people bounce back. But
if we did the project management again, could you come up maybe with some pointers for us? I know we did a session on effective delegating once before, but delegating is really part of project management. I know I struggle sometimes with the best way to delegate things. I don't always feel like I'm as polite as I should be, or if I'm as effective as I should be. Maybe something about delegating, or maybe since you have a background in like psychology, which I don't have, would you have any, or be able to find any pointers on how we could match the best person to the best task? No, I'm serious.
What you need is the thing is, yes, there might be an ideal person to do that task, but the thing is, are they really willing and able? Can you charm them into it?
Well, then that's when my delegating skills, newly acquired, will come into play. They won't be able to refuse me.
All right. Well, okay. So I'm going to look at the idea of project management, and the thing is, I can tie that to checklists. I was going to say project management. I keep thinking about my only experience, and not personal experience, but from friends, like project management is like when you're on a construction project, and then, some person has to know where everything is and what's doing and when the heavy equipment's coming in and all that. Yeah, but I think when it comes to more personal kinds of projects, I probably can do something about that, and definitely I would incorporate the checklists into it, because I think that's checklists and timelines can help have a bigger project to go more smoothly. So so I think I could probably work with that. I want to thank everybody for coming this evening, and I hope you got something out of it.
Oh, I